Christine, coming back to you,
Yeah.
if you were given an opportunity to tell the federal government about how to resolve this issue, MS63, the grievances, or at least dealing with this issue, what would you advise them to do?
First thing, I will advise them to revise back again the MS63. Secondly, implementation. How do we incorporate in our government system nowadays? Because we have federal constitution, which is above all of law, and if there's a federal constitution, how about MS63? Do we go join these things two together, or do we rely on MS63 only? So this is the issue that we need to look at. And thirdly, I would like to give suggestion to the government that we need a special forum, because right now we don't have particularly in Sabah, we don't have special forum to discuss about MS63 to the public. So we need public to tell the government that we need at least the essence in MS63 to be implemented, especially in state government, because right now we have this kind of system, federal government and state government. If state government want this MS63, how about the federal government? Do they interfere, or do they cooperate together to implement MS63 into Malaysia, or between Sabah and Sarawak only?
How strong is this feeling about MS63 people from your generation? Is it a very strong feeling? Is the feeling of state nationalism very strong in Sabah and Sarawak among your generation?
I think it's increased in intensity over the past few years.
Yes, it's increased. But to be honest, if you go to the youth in Sabah, Sarawak, or in areas around it, knowledge of the MA63 is not knowledge specific to the MA63. It's not there.
Yeah.
But there's a strong feeling that Sabah is for Sabahan, Sarawak is for Sarawak.
It becomes it's an us against them, and this was definitely politically motivated, especially by the state governments. And it's sad because it feels like your people are being manipulated. They're being fed a half truth, I would say. So they always say the strongest lies are half truths, and as like as mentioned earlier, we do not have enough knowledge about MA63, what's really accorded to us. What more the layman people who maybe had minimal education, which are common in your East Malaysia. You have people who only had primary school education or didn't go to school at all, and these be up the majority of your voters, especially in the rural areas. So more often than not, why did Sabah and Sarawak became a BN deposit state for many years? Because more often than not, education wasn't there. People were not aware of that, their rights were taken away. So they voted because they were comfortable, they recognized the same symbol since the 60s, in fact, and they were comfortable. They have been living comfortably. Only during the last general election, we would say there was somewhat of a tsunami that happened because people were unhappy. Young people were coming up, and even the older generation with access to as more social media, they are brought in from the younger people. They become more aware of what's happening on the ground. But definitely there should be more coming in. And a lot of times, like, we were fed info like, that we don't want West Malaysians to come in because they'll take away our land. And to East Malaysians, land is something that that's very precious to us. Because a lot of us, we come from, our ancestors were farmers. So when we are told that if we take back our rights, we take back our land, Sarawak is for Sarawakians, Sabah is for Sabahans, they feel empowered. They feel like, hey, maybe when I take back my land, I can have a better life. I get more access to development, because when they compare West Malaysia and East Malaysia, they realize like, hey, why we are behind? We don't have an LRT, which they're looking at now. We don't have roads. We don't have a highway. It takes like 12 to 14 hours to get from Kuching to Miri because there's no highway. And you have even villages with no electricity, and people are feeling it. Some of them even to go to school, they have to walk barefooted 2 hours across river, and these are issues that sadly is not widely known to the Malaysian public in general, that this is still happening. We are not taking care of our own people, and moving forward, I'd like to see our existing government taking care of these issues, taking care of people who are underserved in the rural area and not just the urban areas alone.
Yeah.
Well, if you talk about the issues of development in Sabah and Sarawak and the fact that the people are being marginalized for the past 50 years, does this fit into the narrative that perhaps Sabah and Sarawak are better off outside of Malaysia? Carol?
That's a very interesting question. I want to say that I think on paper, in talk, it's so easy to say, let's just be another country. But the realities of being another country, economics, currency, governance, etc., is very tricky. There is some sentiment about that, but I think for the most part, most of at least the Sarawakians in my circle that I know, would be more than happy if our rights, as stated out in MA63, were upheld and actually implemented. And then I think people will be okay, because for the most part, I don't think, you have people who would want to go to, let's say, like bigger cities to work, and it's usually places like here, KL, and that's all fine and dandy. And it's just that there are so many things that have left people just upset. I mean, think about it. We are in 2018, okay? And there are still kids that have to walk for hours to school. Places with no running water. Yeah. How is that okay when we sit here so comfortably in PJ, in KL, and we just grab food, order, Uber, grab whatever. It's just such a great disconnect. And I think we've been so terribly underrepresented, actually. So just a quick aside about whether or not the people who were in power on a federal level should be on this commission. I want to say a couple of things. I want to say the interest in terms of federal and state can be quite different. Yeah. So the same people, I would say that there are likely to be people who are in, let's say, the current state government in Sarawak, who may not have been even alive at the point when 30 years ago these things happened, and probably have their own sentiments about it. And maybe now is a chance for them to actually kind of fix what the people before them did wrong. Yeah.